welcome to The Next Word. I'm your host, Chris Warnke, and tonight we're going to take you back into time. You're going to meet the first female Black Impressionist who was the opening act for the Whitney Houston Love Tour. Her name is Sylvia Traymore Morrison. Sylvia, what a great privilege. I love it. I just love it. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Oh my God.
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
you were
terrific. Well, no, and I saw you on stage about a week ago, and you were phenomenal.
Thank you.
So I have to have her on my show. So Sylvia, thank you.
Thank you.
So the first Black female impressionist, you have performed with every major comedian.
I really have. I had no idea when I got started back. Before Jay Leno, before all those guys made it, we all worked together. Me, Jay, David Letterman, Robin Williams. And then I graduated to meet Jerry Seinfeld. We were all doing open mic comedy. Isn't that something?
But when did you know that you were a comedian? I mean, were you like this all your life? What did your parents think?
I think so, because I remember I used to make cricket sounds.
Oh, like what?
And I can't do them now, but I mean, when I was a kid, my parents thought crickets were in the house. And it would be me making the sounds. I could do bumblebees. I could hear things too. I could hear the wings of a butterfly. I could tell you if a bumblebee was nearby.
So you must have you have to have perfect pitch. Have you been tested? You have to be able to do what you do. And I've seen what you do.
Yeah.
You have to.
Because I'm sitting here now, and I have this thing. I just study people. I'm watching you, and I'm looking at your characteristics, and I'm like, but Chris can. I might be able to do an impression
to do me?
of Chris.
Oh my God, that's scary.
Well, I mean, not right now. I have to study you a little while longer.
So you can do bumblebees, and you can actually hear the fluttering
hear the flapping
of a butterfly wing.
Yes, when I was a kid, I could. And I'm getting old, so I can hardly hear anybody talking. You know what I'm saying? When I first started out, I didn't know that I had a gift. It's a gift.
It's a gift. Yeah, it's a major gift.
It was surprising that I would tell people. My sister would say, "No, there's no bumblebee around." I said, "No, I'm telling you, there's some bees right around us somewhere," and all of a sudden they would come right up.
Amazing.
She was like, "How'd you hear that?" I don't know.
Well, so as a native Washingtonian, living on 16th Street.
Yes.
That's right. So you grew up here.
Yes, I did.
Wow. We have some great stories that came from Washington and this whole area.
Oh my God! You know what? At the time that we lived in the 1600 block of Corcoran Street, we didn't realize, even my neighbors and my friends who grew up with me on that street, we could walk to the corner, look down the street, and there was the White House. There was no green trees and big, pretty, gorgeous, it was all like just the 50s and the 60s. And the most powerful house in the world. And we could have cared less, because we didn't realize where we were. There's the White House. I mean, there it was, right there.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
amazing. So but getting started in this business, which was not an easy business, and you were the first Black associate writer for Saturday Night Live, which was huge.
Yeah, 1979.
Did you perform on Saturday Night Live? You were behind the scenes.
I was behind the scenes.
Yeah,
I started out because Lauren Michael, who was the executive producer then, offered me the job, and he told me that I would not start out performing, but I could work my way into performing.
Okay.
They wanted me as an associate writer, because he said to me then, every time they tried to do a skit, now we're talking 1979, Saturday Night Live was only 4 years old, and he said to me, every time we try to do a skit about Black women, and I'm paraphrasing, it always just does not work well.
Really?
So they wanted to bring me in to kind of see what I could do to soften or fix or whatever it was that they needed. Right. And I was so tickled pink, I didn't know what to do.
But you never performed?
No, I never performed.
Who was the first Black woman that was on?
I know that she came on, and she stayed. Rudolph. Maya is it? Yeah, Maya Rudolph. I think it was. Yeah.
So from there, you went. That's when then you went into comedy.
Yeah, well, no, actually, when I realized that I could do professional people, when I could do imitations, like my first impression, I believe, was Ed Sullivan.
Oh, that would be a good one.
That was Ed Sullivan. How far back is that?
Right.
And then I could do Jane Hathaway. She used to be a character on a show called The Beverly Hillbillies.
Right.
And then I could do Katharine Hepburn.
Wow.
I could do
Wow,
Joan
great.
Rivers.
Oh, Joan Rivers would be good.
Yeah, I could do people who today a lot of people would not know who they
Right,
were.
right.
And so the problem was there was no platform for me to show what I could do.
Oh, wow.
Because we
that's
only had
interesting.
4 TV stations,
Right,
channel 4,
right.
5, 7, and 9.
Right, right.
And TV went off at what?
Right.
12 o'clock?
Is that
midnight?
amazing? Is that amazing?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there was nowhere for me to perform. And then I saw the Flip Wilson show, and he had these girls on there. It was the Miss Black America organization. And to make a very long story short, I decided I'd enter the pageant.
Oh, you entered.
I entered the Miss
love
Black
it.
America pageant because that's the only way I knew how to get on national TV.
Wow.
And sure enough,
Did you win? You won?
I tied with Bernadette Standish, who is Thelma from Good Times.
Right.
I don't know if you remember
Wow.
that show.
Yes, oh yeah, I remember Good Times.
And they sent 4 of us to Europe to entertain the American troops, which was the biggest thing that ever happened to me.
Oh, it's
For
great.
me to go and entertain thousands and thousands
Oh,
and
wow.
thousands of our men and women in uniform was humongous. And while I was there, the reviews were unbelievable. And a guy back in the States saw me,
it.
and
Oh,
he said,
wonderful.
I need to fly her out here to California. And that guy, who happened to be my very first manager, his name was Red Fox.
No, Red Fox.
Red Fox was my very first
Oh
manager.
my God.
And he
Oh,
did. He flew me
Sylvia.
out to
Yeah.
California, and that's what kicked it off.
And that's
for
what
the
kicked
most
it
part.
off. So you stayed in California.
I stayed in California for a while, and then my dad got really sick. So I had to come home because he died. And then my mother died right behind. She had a broken heart,
yeah,
so she
broken
died.
heart, right.
And that's when I was in California, hooked up with Jay Leno and Robin Williams and Letterman and those guys. When my dad died, I stayed on the East Coast and moved to New York so I could be close to my mother.
Right, right.
And that's where I met Jerry Seinfeld and Rosie O'Donnell and Elaine Boozler and all these people who were doing comedy. And we were all trying to make it.
Make it in the stand-up comedy
Yeah, in the
arenas,
stand-up.
like
Exactly.
throughout the city, or
Right.
because we don't have that many here in Washington.
No. Well, you know what's happened is we had
We need some
quite a
com-
few. We had Dave Chappelle.
Yes,
We had Martin Lawrence.
right.
Wanda Sykes. Pierre Edwards.
Wanda Sykes is a Washingtonian.
Wanda Sykes started her comedy career right here
Oh wow.
in the DMV. And
Really?
Dave Chappelle started when he was like 14 years old.
Wow.
His mom
Really?
used to bring him to the club because he was too young to come into the
Right,
clubs.
right,
So he was escorted by his mother.
Wow.
He recently brought his Emmy back to Duke Ellington and gave it to the school where he attended school.
Wow. Wow. But in this time period, of course, when you were doing, it was a hard time to break that barrier, as we all know, and as a black woman,
Yes, yes,
mean-
absolutely.
right? It was really challenging. I'm
I-
sure.
Oh my God, it was.
And for you to you broke through that barrier. It was
Oh my
huge.
God. When I decided to write the autobiography,
Almost there.
almost there,
Almost.
it was a little difficult. I actually took 180 pages out because I didn't want to just complain about what I had to go through. Just keep complaining.
Right.
There was so much. There was so. I don't know how
So many
I
stigmas,
lasted.
yeah.
I don't know how I got through that because if I had to do that today,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think I could do it. They were. It was just the times,
the
you know.
times,
That's just, it was a man's genre, and it was mostly white guys, you know, because you had
Right.
Richard Pryor, you had Flip Wilson, you had Red Fox, and you had Bill Cosby,
Right.
and you know what I'm saying. You had these guys,
Right.
and the only woman that I could name, black female, was Moms Mabley,
Right.
who died in 1975.
Oh wow. Wow.
So it was quite a challenge. They would not let me have the microphone. We don't want you in here. I mean, they would blatant, just
Really
come
blatant.
right out.
Wow.
What do you want, Sylvia? When you're a woman, you're not doing comedy. I mean, just blatant.
Wow.
And my passion was so deep. I could do impressions, for God's sake.
Right. Right.
Who else, what
do
other woman do you
impressions,
know
yeah.
can do
No.
this? Can you just give me 5
Right.
minutes? And I'll never forget, Chris, there was this one night, I used to go to this club every week. I'm telling you, it was my safe haven because the people, the audience, they just showed so much
loved
love.
you,
It's
yeah.
all white audience now. all white.
Interesting.
And they loved me, and it just
Saved
warmed my
you, yeah.
heart. You know,
Well, it gave
I
you
could always,
energy to-
yes,
right,
I could
right.
always look forward to them because they would give me standing ovations.
Really? It's
Oh my
fabulous.
God. So finally, the club owner calls me because I didn't get paid for 10 years. 10 years in the business before I got paid. The club owner calls me in and he says, Sylvia, come in, I want to talk to you. So I'm thinking, oh my God, he's going to start paying me. Yeah. And he told me to have a seat and he said, listen, honey, I'm just going to give it to you straight. You stink.
You stink.
Your talent is no good. Your impressions don't sound like anybody. Why don't you try to get a job or something?
Wow.
Chris, when I tell you
Wow, so real.
the devastation I had inside my heart that night,
Oh my God.
because it meant that I couldn't come back to his club
Right.
anymore. I'm almost in tears talking about it
Right.
because I loved that club with everything
Yeah.
I had.
And this was in New York
Everything.
City?
New York City. And I knew when I walked out that night that I would be done. You know, I couldn't go back. And it almost became truth to me that maybe I wasn't good. You know, maybe I wasn't. The thing that kept me going is I had nothing else I could do.
Wow.
So I had to get better, at least to a point
to a
where
point where-
if he
right,
ever
right.
saw me again, he would think I was amazing.
Right.
And I'm
Well,
telling
did you prove him wrong?
oh my God. I wish I could find him today,
I
but
know,
that
it'd be
was like
great.
back in the 70s. So I
Because
really
you proved
do.
him so wrong that you were touring with Whitney
Whitney
Houston.
Houston.
So it was her first tour.
Her first
Her
major
grand
tour.
major tour called Love Tour.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, what an experience,
Yeah.
Sylvia.
She was performing at the Warner Theater here in D.C.
Yes.
And there was a comedian, a guy who was supposed to open for her. His name is Andy Evans. I know he's going to see the show and go, Sylvia always talks about me, yay.
Yeah.
So Andy thought this show was Saturday, when in fact it was Friday. So he missed the show.
Oh,
So the promoters called me and said, Sylvia, can you get down here? We need an opening act for Whitney Houston. I'm like,
oh my God. And this was when you were in New York and you came back?
no, I was in D.C.
DC
now.
at that
I've
point, okay.
come back to D.C. I think this was in 85-ish, 86.
Right.
And I opened the show at the Warner for Whitney Houston, and I got, oh my God, I got 3 standing ovations.
Oh, wow.
3.
Wow,
I was
that's
doing Tina
amazing.
Turner.
So-
Tina Turner always
Oh,
shut
Tina
it down.
Turner, we haven't seen this one, yeah. That's
Oh,
a good-
yeah, that's
That's
the
a
one.
good
That's
one.
Tina Turner.
That would shut it down, right.
Shut it down.
Right.
And so Whitney told me, she says, when I go on tour, I'm taking you with me.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
So
right.
this was
yeah.
her, yeah, right.
You-
This
you
was
know.
her beginning. This
Yeah,
really-
she was. This is when she started winning her Grammys and her American Music Awards.
Oh, my
and
God,
she was
Sylvia.
everywhere, all over the place. People loved her. They did.
Yeah.
And sure enough, she'd gone on tour, and what happened was she took another guy at the suggestion of her people. You know, no, you don't need another black girl that looks like you, and you guys what?
What?
And for whatever reason, it didn't work. And she said, "I want Sylvia."
Oh, that's great.
And
What
so
a
they
person.
called me up, and
Wow, Sylvia, what a,
it was amazing.
oh my, and how long did you tour with her?
I stayed with her for 23 cities, major United
Wow.
States cities. Yeah.
What
So
an
we took-
experience.
It was the highlight, one of the highlights of my career.
Absolutely.
The top 3 highlights of my career, because it was Whitney Houston. It was like, who gets to? I mean, who? It's like if Beyonce was to come and ask me today
Right,
to come and
right,
go on. If you
right.
want Beyonce, I'll do it. I'll do
Right,
it.
right,
But you know,
Right.
yeah,
Oh, wow, what an experience.
it was amazing.
Yeah, and
Really
now, of
was.
course, you impersonate her aunt, Dionne Warwick.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
Can't
all the
wait to
greats.
do it. I'm here. You know, I'm
Yes,
in DC tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
night.
right. So you just have, I mean, tremendous, expansive
You know what,
list
Chris?
of people. So really, truly, you're really very gifted, Sylvia. I mean,
Thank you. Thank
oh
you
my
very
God.
much.
And not only that, just the mannerisms and the, and
Can I ask
And of
you a
course-
question?
yes.
Okay, so when you were at the show at
Yes,
the
yes.
at the
When I saw
Marriott,
you,
when you
yes.
saw me, did you had no idea that I was coming out and that I
no, I
did-
had no idea, so I didn't know what to expect. And they kept building, you up, and the first black female impressionist, and the first associate writer of Saturday Night Live. It's huge, and so I thought, well, this is going to be an interesting act. I had no idea, so I was incredibly impressed. And
Thank you.
yes, and
That's so. I'm
yes,
so thankful that you feel that way.
So I tracked
Thank
you down. So thank you, but we're going to take a short break, and we'll
Okay.
be right back.
Okay.
And I want to hear more about your book.
Okay. Okay.
Jelly Beans from Heaven. I love
Yes,
it. I love the
that's
title.
the
You
new
hear
one.
about the title.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're taking a short break, and we'll be right back.
You've messed up your son's haircut. Do you try to fix it? Work with what you've got? Or show solidarity?
Thank you, babe.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back. You're watching The Next Word, and I'm your host, Chris Warnke. And tonight we have an incredible guest, Sylvia Traymore Morrison, the first Black female impressionist, as well as the first Black associate writer of Saturday Night Live, and a native Washingtonian. And we're so proud of that, Sylvia.
Thank you.
What stories? I mean, you know, your career's phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I love it
because
because you're coming back in a whole new way. And we're all happy.
Thank you very much.
Having seen you last week, I just loved it. I loved it.
I don't know if you understand, but I'm really honored to be here with you tonight.
No,
I really am. And I know
you.
that you're just so humble. You're so sweet. But it's like, I know when I'm being interviewed by someone, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, because I had to track you down. So I loved all your impressions.
Thank
It
you.
was just amazing. That day, you did Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes.
You did Melania Trump.
Uh-huh.
You did Michelle Obama, of course. And you
Wendy
did,
Williams.
And Wendy Williams.
Did I do any
No, you-
singing voices? No, I didn't. Those are the ones I did, I think.
Those are the only ones you did.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes. But you do so many.
Yeah.
And you toured with Whitney Houston, her first tour, which was amazing.
Yeah, that was wow.
Well,
What
that's
a,
wow, yeah.
Yeah.
But you had a lot of wows in your life.
I did.
You
I
did.
really did.
I mean, Red Fox became your manager.
Yes.
Correct?
First
That's a wow,
manager. First
right?
one.
I mean, you played with everybody, the Jay Lenos, the Seinfelds, the Robin Williams. And Robin Williams must have been fascinating. He was a genius. He was
Oh
truly
my
a
God!
genius.
You know, I met all of them that you just named: Jay, Robin, David Letterman, Jerry Seinfeld. I met them. I was with them when they had not made it yet. Weren't even
They had
sure
not
that they
made
were.
it yet.
No, they were trying to.
wow.
They were doing open mics.
They were
and
competing with you.
all of us. We were right in the same
circle.
group together. And like we said earlier, the difference was being a Black female.
Yeah, it's tough.
It was,
Yeah.
you know, nobody wanted you anywhere near them back in
Right.
the early 70s
Right,
and,
right.
and mid 70s. And so it was a challenge. But working with those guys, when I look back on it, you know, to think that I'm sitting here, there's Robin Williams, who I love.
Yeah, he
Who
was
I
a
love. He
genius,
was so
genius,
nice to
yeah.
me. He would say to me, hey, Sylvia, you're going to be big one day. You're just going to be big. And, you know, and I wanted so bad to say before he died that, you know what, you used to always say I'd be big. Look at you.
Wow.
Just look at you. He's a good guy.
Wow,
Just a
good
great guy.
Yeah, he seemed like on stage, off
Yeah.
stage, yeah. Which you can say a lot about a person when
Yeah.
they're at that level. and
Yeah. Yes.
that
And I don't think he ever changed. People said he stayed the same. He was
Right.
just always the same.
But,
So-
so you took a tour. So first, let me say, going back now, you were a flight attendant.
Yes.
So tell us about that experience, because going from, was that one of your first jobs?
It was, okay, I was in college in Atlanta, Georgia, and one of my college friends came in a flight attendant uniform, and she quit school because she needed to save money in order to come back to school.
And travel.
And so she said, I get to go wherever I want to go. The airline takes care of everything. And I'm like thinking in my head, oh, that means I could go. Now, I'm in Atlanta at the time. I'm thinking, I could go from New York to California as a flight attendant. So I applied,
I love
and I got the
It's not
job.
that easy. I mean, it's pretty rigorous training,
And so
as well as selection.
Absolutely. Selection was a big deal,
It's a big deal. As a
Back
Black
then,
female, right.
I could probably name for you every Black female flight attendant, which we called stewardesses at the time.
Right.
Because there just weren't that many.
No, there weren't
so
that
for
many,
me to get picked, it was a big deal. So now I'm flying, and I've graduated to being the head.
The purser. Or
Yeah, the person who does all the announcements
right,
and
right.
everything. And one day I got this notion that I was going to do impressions.
Oh, that's great.
Instead of going, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to flight number 123 from Washington, D.C. to Miami, Florida, I decided Lily Tomlin would make
Okay, so
the announcement.
Can you do it?
Yes. So
Okay.
she's like, Gracious, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to welcome you aboard flight number 123. Oh my God,
Did the passengers go nuts?
They wrote
Loved it.
letters, they sent notes, they just applauded it because it was so different.
Yeah, I love it.
And I thought I was going to get in trouble, get
Yeah,
called
right,
in because
right,
there are rules and regulations
I
on
think there are
flights.
rules and
But
right.
the airlines liked it. As a matter of fact, Eastern ended up being a sponsor for me when I entered the Miss Black America pageant.
Oh, that's great.
Eastern sponsored me.
So you entered the Miss Black America. You forgot that little piece. You entered the Miss Black America pageant.
I did. I entered the Miss Black America pageant. I think it was 1972. I went in there because that was the only platform I had.
You could have to get into the right. We talked about.
And do
that,
you
right.
know, at the time, I think it was I don't know when they changed the rule, but we couldn't enter the Miss America pageant.
Right.
Because
right,
rule number
right,
7 said you had to
right,
be Caucasian.
Right.
Period.
Period.
So we
Period.
couldn't even enter it then, but they've changed the rule, as you know. They've already changed the rule. So I entered the Miss Black America pageant, and I tied with Bernadette Stannis, who's Thelma on Good Times. And
We talked, right.
Yeah, we
And
talked
you-
about that earlier.
Yes,
We
and
did.
you said, now you must have won the personality contest.
I did.
You did,
I won
didn't you?
Miss
I
Congeniality.
knew it. I knew it.
Yeah,
You had to
I
have won Miss
did.
Congeniality.
But when they sent us to Europe, it was crazy. I mean, I'd never been out of the country. I just barely had been out of Washington D.C.
Right.
I was, just
Wow.
incredible. So yeah, and come back and okay. So I did the airlines. I left
did the-
school. I flew around for a while until the pageant decided that the pageant decided they were going to send us to Europe. So I had to leave the airlines.
Oh.
Had to
Oh,
leave.
so you went to Europe for a year?
Yes, I went to Europe for a season for like about 5. I think it was 5 weeks, maybe.
Touring as a
Touring.
you mean
As a
as
representative of the Miss
representative
Black
of Miss-
America pageant.
Oh,
So we had
interesting.
all the it was just the time of my life.
Yes.
It was
Oh,
the-
I bet it was.
so
Wow.
Germany.
What a
And
story.
Just yeah.
Your autobiography. I mean, I must,
Yeah, the
I love it.
autobiography is.
Everybody has to read it. Almost there, almost.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I mean, what a story. I mean,
Thank you.
but now, okay, so you've come back. Of course, you've done your whole, the airline, flight attendant.
Yeah. So when I got back, that's when Red Fox decided.
That's when he decided that, right.
He won because
right.
he had read about, back then we didn't have social media.
Right.
So you could only hear about people through television, radio, magazines,
Right.
word of mouth,
Right.
and phone calls.
A phone call. Right.
Period.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's how you got to be popular. And he had seen some of the stories in Europe. And they talked about this black girl who's over there doing all these impressions. She sounds just like these people. And he said, I want to see her in person.
That's great.
So the
Wow.
day I got back, he had made arrangements with some people and had them to get in touch with me. And they had a ticket waiting for me at the airport
Wow.
the next
and
day.
they flew out to L.A.
Flew me out to L.A.
Oh, what a story.
I was so scared. I was like,
Oh, God, Sylvia.
Red Fox. Oh, God.
But these things just don't happen, though. So you also create these things in life. You
I appreciate you saying
absolutely.
that, because that's
absolutely.
heavy.
But you're also gifted.
Well,
That helps.
yeah, it's like-
You're very gifted, but no, really. And then you were asked to do a show with Muhammad Ali,
Muhammad Ali.
when they roasted him. Or
yeah,
right.
they I had to come back home to D.C. because my dad, I think I
Right,
told you
passed
earlier,
away, right.
my dad passed away, and then my mother was there. I didn't want to go back out to California, so I moved to New York. And of course, again,
Yes,
that's
right.
where I ran into Seinfeld and so forth. And so I read where they were hosting, they were roasting Muhammad Ali
Right,
at the
wow.
Apollo Theater. He was everything then at that
Yes,
time.
he
He
was.
was the
Yeah, he still is.
biggest name ever.
right.
And I initially, and I don't tell people this often, but I'll tell you, when they announced the roast, I decided I had to be at that roast. I didn't know how I was going to get in. So I was going to crash the roast as a black Ruth Bussey, who was a character on a show called Laugh-In.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh, right. On Laughing.
I was going to crash the roast, had my plans, everything. And I
Right.
said, they're probably going to lock me up because I have no business. This is Muhammad Ali, but I got to be at this roast. I have to.
Oh my God.
And lo and behold, Richard Pryor quit the day of the roast. And I'm in San Antonio, Texas, waiting for my flight to come home.
Wow.
And my girlfriend called. She says, have a seat. You're not going to believe the news that I'm about to tell you. Have a seat.
Wow.
So I sat down and said, what's wrong? She said, you don't have to crash the roast.
Oh, so you have to use.
You're going to host
I
the
love
roast.
it. Oh my
I
God.
said, what do you mean? She says, Richard Pryor's not coming. They have nobody that can replace him. So we talked Dick
Oh, my
Gregory into
God.
hiring you.
Wow. So
Chris,
Dick
when
Gregory
I
was your
he was
your mentor.
They have actually, his family in the last year or so have invited me out to so many.
Well, wonderful.
Because we lost him last year.
We lost him last
yeah,
year,
They've
right.
it's been it was
year.
amazing.
Yeah, wonderful.
So I got on the plane. I flew back to New York.
What
And
a
the
story.
limousine, I didn't have a limousine, really. So the limousine picked me up, and they took me to the Apollo Theater.
It's a great
And I think
theater.
NBC was taping it, and there I was.
Do you have those tapes? Those old tapes?
I do have.
That's great. That's great.
I'll
So
send
tell
you
us,
guys.
so when you got there and you met Muhammad Ali,
Oh my God, Chris! First of all, I just learned to do my impression of Muhammad Ali. Now I'm a female in the 1970s.
doing an impression of
Nobody
Muhammad.
knows that I even
Right,
exist.
right.
And I'm about to take the stage for the first time in my life
Right.
in front of Muhammad Ali.
And NBC or someone.
And the whole world is going to,
Right,
well, they
right.
taped it. It wasn't live.
Right, but they taped.
But they were taping it. And I am going to do my impression of Muhammad Ali. And they had him there because I had to introduce him. And I looked at him and I said, Mr. Ali, if you could just wait 1 minute, I'd like to do something. And I gathered myself together because I'm about to do the heavyweight champion of the world. What woman does this?
Right.
Chris, I got out there on that stage and I looked. And I started doing all my little antics of Muhammad Ali. And I saw him backstage. Every once in a while I'd peep over at him. And I saw him looking like, you doing me? And so finally when I was done,
I love it. Oh,
he came
Sylvia.
out on the stage, he grabbed my hand, and he walked me to the front of the stage. And he held my hand up.
And he held your hand up. Oh, wow.
He said,
What a photo.
wasn't Sylvia amazing? And I
Amazing,
had Muhammad Ali to do that, and Whitney Houston with the same hand.
Really?
Whitney Houston held my hand up in Canada because we
brought the show, you brought the house
my
down.
God.
You brought the house down, yeah.
And she said, well, you could hear the roar of Whitney's audience, I believe,
I mean,
from
in
miles.
Toronto, probably from miles.
Yeah.
Was this in Montreal?
In
Toronto?
Montreal, I think
Montreal,
it was, yeah.
wow.
But anyway, so that's the
What's
whole
the story,
the whole
Sylvia?
Muhammad Ali story.
So we didn't have time to talk about your book,
I know.
your other book, Jelly Beans from Heaven, but I'm going to bring you back because you're wonderful.
Oh, I would love to come
And
back.
I
Really?
love it. Thank you.
you.
Oh my God, Sylvia, we have
Thank
plans
you.
for you. Yes,
Thank you
yes,
very
you're
much.
wonderful.
I feel so
Wonderful.
like,
Thank you. Thank you.
Chris,
Yeah.
Chris.
Thank you. You've been watching The Next Word. Thank you and have a great evening. Good night.